This is Radical Love Live, an ongoing series of podcasts and special events where we explore faith outside the boxes. Hosted by Mark Dilcom and Kelly Wilson.
So, hey, Kelly.
Hey, Mark.
How you doing?
I am really good. I'm really good. Thank you.
Yeah. So, so what happened to, what's the story with your hair?
I remember I said I was going to get my hair cut.
Yes.
And, obviously.
Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
You're kind of getting the who's the dude, like on the big, yes, on the,
dude,
dude. The Big Lebowski. You're getting the look.
Yeah. Like I said, I had it all set up with my barber to get my spring shearing. And, He called in sick. And then I've been doing another podcast with one of my clients.
Yeah.
And she looked at the video and was like, "Oh, you have great hair." And I'm like, my vanity might be getting the better of me. Maybe this.
Yeah. Let it grow out,
on the first day it gets 80 degrees though, I get, hot. I'll be shaving it myself.
Maybe you shouldn't do that. I'm just
maybe
saying.
not.
Maybe not. Leave it to the pros.
It's funny. My wife actually went years ago to cosmetology school and will not cut my hair.
Oh,
yeah.
And she's like, it's so difficult. We're not doing this.
No, it's just because I guess I'm maybe not the best.
Oh, wow. Well, thankfully you're awesome in other ways. You are. You're an awesome co-host with Radical Love Live. You're a great dad. You got all this other stuff going for you. So, you're a little weak in that area on being a not so hot, customer, barber customer.
How are you?
I'm great, actually. I am, in fact, I'm freaking awesome.
That's what I was.
Yeah. I'm freaking awesome as always. Like, things are going well with Divine all along and getting it launched and, I am exactly where I need to be.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yep.
Oh, also, I want to mention before we get too far that, people have a few months to plan, but in October, we're going to be at Theology Beer Camp.
Yes, we
in
are.
Denver.
Yes, we are.
And for people who want tickets, we have a special code to give them so that they can get a discount.
Yes. And Kelly's looking up the code.
It's Radical Hobbit, like from the Lord of the Rings. Yeah, and it's all caps.
Okay.
No spaces. Yeah, there's Lord of the Rings theme to the beer camp.
Okay. So Radical Hobbit, RADICALHOBBIT, all caps.
Yep.
And what will our listeners get if they use that code to sign up for the Theology Beer Camp?
They get a $25 discount off their tickets.
Okay.
And they can come and look for us at the event.
Yeah. And for folks that aren't aware of Theology Beer Camp, this is something that Trip Fuller's been doing for a number of years, and it's a pretty popular event. Couple of days, and there's all kinds of people getting together to talk about you name it. So go to their website, go check it out. We're going to be there.
Yep. And a bunch of other podcasts.
Yep.
And like you said, Fuller's going to be there. Tom Orr's going to be there.
Yep.
Jonathan Tamanel's going to be there. It's associated with Homebrewed Theology. So if you look up the Homebrewed Theology podcast, you can find the information, and the tickets are available on Eventbrite.
There you go. Thank you for clarifying that. So yes. So folks, go to Homebrewed Christianity.
Oh, it's Homebrewed Christianity.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
To cut that out. Yes. Homebrewed. Sorry, Trip.
Homebrewed Christianity.
Yes. I've been drinking my own homebrew this morning.
All right. So what are we going to be talking about today, my friend?
Well, we are, I've told you a lot about, and our listeners about my family and my background.
Yes, you have.
Family really has a big impact on spirituality, or can be.
Yeah, it does.
So today we're going to introduce someone from my family.
Wow. Okay.
This is someone who is a layman, but comes from a rich heritage of Christian faith.
Mhm.
Today we're going to introduce Rhett Wilson.
Oh.
He's a craftsman, avid golfer, family man, and all around super cool guy. And I've told you a little about, like I said, my family heritage, but want to give you a little bit of background on Rhett's lineage, and that he can fill in some of the details, but I'll give you just kind of the top line.
Go for it.
So Rhett's great grandfather is my grandfather.
Yep.
Was Donald Lorenzo Wilson, Reverend Donald Lorenzo Wilson,
Reverend Donald Lorenzo
who
Wilson.
was named after the great evangelist of the 1800s, Lorenzo Dow, who was kind of an eccentric, like roamed the countryside.
Mm.
Our grandfather, Donald Lorenzo, was a preacher in lots of small churches in the Free Methodist and Wesleyan tradition, so really like conservative. And he and our grandmother Vida are regarded as the spiritual pillars of our family. We always kind of look to them as examples. So then Rhett's grandfather, my dad, is Donald Clifford Wilson.
Okay.
So we got Donald II.
Yep.
Who trained for the ministry. And although he later became a salesman and sold cars and is breeding horses and spent time managing real estate, he's also done work worldwide as a missionary and a preacher.
This is your dad.
My dad.
Very cool.
So Rhett's dad
Yes.
is Donald Richard Wilson. So
Okay.
it's Donald III.
Okay.
And he's had a whole career of sales and business. And he's now a deacon in a Reformed Episcopal church and a postulant, and also a minister in the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So you can see that there's kind of like
there's
DNA
a thread there. Yep. The DNA is strong.
Right. And then Rhett is actually Donald Rhett Wilson. So he's Donald the Fourth.
Mm-hmm.
And if you remember a couple months ago, I guess a few months ago, when I went to a baptism out of town,
You did.
that was Rhett's son, Rocky Wilson, who's Donald Rockefeller Wilson.
Oh, very cool. And he's number 5.
And he's number 5. So,
Oh.
with after all that preamble, let me introduce Rhett Wilson. Welcome.
Hello, Rhett.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. The Donalds. Absolutely. I mean, I told pretty much every girlfriend I ever had that I was like, if we have a kid, the first one's gonna be Donald Rockefeller Wilson V. I'm gonna name him after America's first billionaire. And he was always gonna be Rocky.
There's something
We were always-
inspired to.
Yeah, we would always call him Rocky. You know, it was inundated with, you know, the story of Rocky Balboa, and you know, just heroes have been a big part of, you know, kind of my life, and you know, those characters that, you know, you kind of look at their story. So that's where Rockefeller and Rocky came from, and there was no chance that he wasn't going to be the 5th.
It's bookended by, you know, Rockefeller, who's got like this social status, and then Rocky Balboa, who kind of starts and ends, you know, at like really humble beginnings. And you're sort of bookended by the scope of human experience.
Oh, absolutely.
There's some weight to these names. I mean, to Rocky, to Rockefeller, and Donald. You know, I looked up the meaning of Donald, and I guess it means like king of the world or something like that.
Oh.
Yeah, I mean, we can say that all day long. Yeah, I'll take it.
Sure. I guess what I'm asking is there a you know, a certain weight or a feeling of responsibility that comes with carrying a family name like that?
There absolutely is. You know, it's something like I don't like generally talk about because it gets, deep to a lot of people of, you know, where essentially I came from, where we came from.
Mhm.
Um, that, you know, it's setting it's being like setting yourself to a standard that isn't, the norm of, my dad was a super successful businessman, or, my dad was Michael Jordan and I need to be the next Michael Jordan. It's so it's so much deeper, and exactly, it's weight, it's heavy. It's, am I doing the right things to carry on and impart what the Donalds have meant to the Wilson family?
Mhm.
And it's it's a load, but it's for, I would say, the last probably 5, 6 years, as I've, become a father and, an actual adult. I just turned 40. So like all of those weights of, what are we doing here? Am I the Donald I'm supposed to be?
Uh-huh.
Has has really led me to sitting and talking to you guys.
Mm.
Um, it's made me realize that like I need to do, what the Donalds do, but I gotta find a way to do it, efficiently and respectfully, and, be my own self, but also carry on what, you know, Don Wooden was trying to do the whole time.
Right, right. Well, it's interesting, the idea of carrying on a tradition, but doing it your own way. Because because, I know, the background that we come from is very, very conservative, very straight-laced, but that there's also, I mean, there's a thread of love and, uh, oh, doing things for other people. I was gonna say activism, but I don't see, like, grandma and grandpa as activists, but they were definitely, like, did stuff for other people, and
Mhm.
balancing those 2. Like, what are some of the ways where you've differed from what might be considered the family tradition, but then some of the ways that you've held on to it?
Um, it was really just the same thing, I listened to, Uncle Greg, your brother, give
Mm.
his testimony.
Mhm.
Um, and it's, that concept of being so heavily inundated in right and wrong. And I think you sent me a note that it's like you have to do ABC to get into heaven or you're going to hell. And um that 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 made me run. That made me run as fast as I could to everything that felt good.
Mhm.
Um and like I said, 40 hits a man hard, and look at your values. What are you doing? How were you brought up? Um, what are you imparting on the next Donald?
Mhm.
um, and I came running back, and I needed to find an avenue.
Mhm.
And like, you've always been, I mean, you and I are closer in age than you are to my dad. So
Yeah.
it's, this was, um, this was an opportunity to, you know, put out there to the rest of the Wilson family, where's Red been? He's like right here with Uncle Kelly talking about the Lord.
Yeah, I was just telling Mark this morning about, stories about us running around when you were, I think you were like 13 or 14, and we were at the cemetery. Rhett's family lived at a cemetery in Indiana. This is right before I moved to New York City. I kind
Mhm.
of like went back to Indiana to regroup for a little bit.
Sure.
Uh, and I, I think in some ways I was the bad influence uncle, or at least the uncle who's like a little different than dad. Like, you let him do what? Yeah. But I treasure those days, and it's
Oh,
like I
as do
remember
I.
a kid now looking at you as a 40-year-old man. It turns my beard gray.
Yeah, right.
Well, you're a little in there.
So I got a question for you, Rhett, based on what you just shared there. So you were given the ABCs, you said, of how to do things right, and you ran. So I take it you ran away from the ABCs. That is that what I understand?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, running away from the ABCs definitely, and I've been thinking a lot about this. It was kind of like there was a Bible box. It's
Yep.
like if you're not in the Bible box, then you're doing it wrong.
Mhm.
There you.
Um,
Yep.
and within that Bible box was our very, very conservative family that, um, I didn't really relate with a lot of my cousins. You know, the the lineage of preachers, and it's just everything was just in that box. And I I didn't I wanted to think outside of the box, but I knew that the principles within that box are what I needed to live by.
Right.
But outside of that box was everybody in the world who needed to see kind of what was in the box, but you don't have to live in the box.
Well said.
I'm following.
Yep.
Yeah, it's kind of it's 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 goes back to that question of is there a a ministry that you do even without being a minister?
Yeah.
And if so, what does that look like?
Which is
That
the
looks
question
like my
I asked Rhett.
garage where I had the terrible internet connection, but it when we moved here, I really found um I actually met one dude who was, a very unassuming, good-looking dude, but he was the first person that would really like openly talk about faith in front of other people.
Mhm.
And my whole life, whenever, I got, a hair up my ass to like, let's talk about, the Lord, let's talk about faith and what your faith is. That's really off putting to a lot of people.
Mhm.
Um, but I found a lot of comfort in him that he was like, I was somebody that he was able to talk to about it as well.
Mhm.
Um, and moving down here, we kind of just came on a whim and, just trying to meet people. And I've found so much comfort in being able to really tell people it's okay to explore that faith. Like like what is your foundation? It's, Crystal went out with a girlfriend last night and she was raised Catholic and she's like, I was so fed up with the Catholic Church that, I she ran too. And then um her and her husband went to church and he's not a believer and she didn't like the church because he didn't like the church. And I was like, you're just going to the wrong church, you know? You
Mhm.
don't even gotta go to church. Just, you know, have your foundation and explore it. Like that's there's so much solace in, you know, exploring being what God really wants us to be.
Mhm.
Mhm.
That doesn't involve just living in that box.
So where do you go, or how do you explore those things? Like, how do you do the exploration about what God wants you to be?
It's the theology of not being an a-hole, really. Like that's and a lot of it, came down to, I mean, I was kind of a history buff of like, where religion even started, and a lot of it is fear-based and all that. And um if somebody has the foundation of right and wrong, then they're off to the best start they can. You know,
Mhm.
it's that core value that is taught, like it's nurtured. Um, and the basis, what I found my whole life was, whether it's Judaism or Hindu or Islam, like all of them are really the basis of like, be nice to that dude. Be nice to yourself. Tell everybody else to be nice to everybody. Like,
Mhm.
take it, forgive, like you are not the judge. Um, and then if you just live that day to day, then there's not a whole lot of other instruction that you need from really anything, as long as you are, doing God's basic will of love one another, you know, don't
Mhm.
be a dick.
I think it's biblical. Yeah.
It is, right? That's somewhere in the Old Testament, right? Don't be.
Well, yeah, uh, um, Rhett and I were texting about this earlier about, did Jesus curse? And I think he got as close. Like, I think he did the equivalent of it at the time, like when
Sure.
he's telling the religious leaders who are down on him, like, you guys are whitewashed tombs, like
Yeah.
he's telling them like their breath is like the rotting dead,
Yes.
and they or his, in terms of Peter, he's like, get behind me, Satan. Um, and my favorite little Bible trivia item is that when he flipped over the tables, that
Mhm.
he stopped for a minute and wove some ropes together as a whip.
Totally.
He was like, I'm gonna like, I'm really gonna lace into this. That's
Yeah, I imagine cursing back in those days was a little different than what we do now. So,
right.
it's our way of doing it is much different.
Yeah. But I think Jesus could be a little rough.
Oh, I absolutely. We turn him into a pacifist, and like something that's just limply hanging from a cross, as a victim. Like, no, I think you're missing the point there. You're really, 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 really missing the point.
Yeah.
So Rhett, okay, so Kelly asked you or mentioned about ministry. Do you feel like you have a ministry now?
Um, to a certain extent, yeah, like it's been, and a lot of it is just trying to meet people. And when we moved down here, like I said, we didn't know anybody, and it's that comfort of being able to, share what my faith is, and I've I've never done that really, and
Mm.
my ministry really is my garage. Come over, let's stay up all night, drink beer, and let me be the person to tell you it's okay to explore it.
Mm.
Don't be ashamed or
Mm.
talk about how you ran from it, because I did too.
Mm.
And that in itself, I feel is ministry as much as they're gonna get. They're not gonna seek it,
Hmm.
and if there's somebody to tell them like, yeah, we're all sinners, but if you really want to explore it and see it, then that's okay, and I'll do it with you. Come to church with us. You
Mm.
know, it's we got a guy who wears a denim vest and a music director that is great, and it's it's what it is. Um, but yeah, I kind of believe that I do have kind of created a ministry in being open and inviting.
Mhm.
Hmm. Well, and that kind of welcome and hospitality is really important. I know that, even like I'm for some conservative Christians, I'm pretty far out there. And
Yeah, they might consider that. Yes.
and queer affirming, and
Yeah.
the Bible is not inerrant. I use theological tools to to interpret it. But Rhett, I know that you and your family have always been really accepting of us, and and I appreciate that. I can see that thread of kindness has been passed down.
God is love.
Yeah, fundamentally, yes. And love is God. It's those two go hand in hand. It's so easy though that we unfortunately forget that. Like I in my own life I can easily just get all caught up in myself and it's like, oh no, I'm supposed to love.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And sometimes it's a challenge to love. I was recently I was teaching a class during Lent at at my church, and we're a pretty progressive Episcopal church, and I can think of, like, when I was a kid growing up in the Nazarene church, when a new election would come along, it'd be like, oh man, the Democrats are just like the devil. Like, Republicans own Christianity, and because of like two topics. But then the Democrats are terrible. But I'm at my church, and we're talking, and it's the same conversation, but about Republicans.
Yes, it is a much other side
It's
of
the
that.
exact same thing. It's
Yep,
all these,
yep.
like, oh man, these Republicans are just terrible. They're
Yeah.
awful. Like, why do they,
Yeah.
why don't they become Christians?
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. Right.
but I say all that just to say, that in that moment to stop and be like, all these people are kind of fundamentally trying to do the same thing. Like, they're all trying to fundamentally make a decent living, get, take care of their family, make sure that the things that they don't want done in society aren't done. But it's very hard for them to talk to each other,
Yeah. We were
let
at that
alone love
point.
each other. That's kind of like what we were talking about with Jay a few weeks ago.
Absolutely. And Rhett, so are you running into that? I mean, for example, if you were sitting around in your garage having a beer with some folks talking, and does religion come up in the context of like politics? So I mean, how do you navigate that in your conversations?
Politics doesn't really come up.
Really? Okay.
No, I mean, it's
Good for you.
Yeah.
Man, I can't.
yeah,
I can't resist the temptation.
it's a pretty homogeneous society here in South Carolina. It's
Okay.
everybody everybody's very conservative. But religion and I don't really talk about politics other than everything costs too much. Everyone thinks that I charge too much for what I do. I mean, other than that, I've always took the stance on politics, like, really, if anybody wants to talk a whole lot about politics, like, go run for office, like, make your change. You can complain about it all day, but I mean, what are you going to do about it? Why don't you go run for the HOA and then become a councilman, and then you can have a leg to stand on. I've never been like, talk to me about politics, because none of us really have any control of that at all. We just kind of have to take it as it comes and lead with love, and whatever the new rules are, we're going to have to abide by those or don't,
Okay. So I got a question for you then. Have you always been this way?
Yeah.
Wow.
Always been.
You're very fortunate. And I say that because, first of all, you just said something that's really, really hard for, I think, a lot of humans, and myself included in that, is to realize that we have no control. Like it's only been within maybe the last, couple of years with me, I'm really realizing I only have control over myself, right? And even then that's difficult. I don't have control over anybody else, what they think, what they do. I can manipulate, yes, but that's different than having control, right? And if you have been walking through your life so far with the reality that, I can't control this and I am not going to worry about it, you are onto something. So
it's let go and let God. I'm sure you guys are familiar with the phrase, but
yes.
I've been in rooms, and that was one thing that really stuck with me, and that's why I really don't care about politics because, it's we could be in a worse state. I mean, we could be in communist China in 1985, like
Yeah, during the uprisings and everything else on tumultuous times. You're absolutely
yeah.
right. It's plenty of
So
examples where, yeah.
we are blessed for as much as, every conservative and Democrat wants to complain about the other side or whatever, like we're still very blessed and where we are today. I mean, compared to the rest of the world, not everybody has a golf cart in their garage.
Mhm. Wow. I love your philosophy.
Yeah, I wish I were that.
Oh.
I wish I had that discipline, and because I have to remind myself, because I will fall into a tit for tat with somebody on Facebook, or even almost got pulled into it on Instagram, of all the platforms this morning.
Instagram is supposed to be about pictures,
right?
and reels.
Exactly. But I get into it, and I have to remind myself. And sometimes my wife will pull me aside and be like, "Are you arguing with a congressperson?" No. Then why are you arguing about this? Like, the person that you're arguing with is not the person who's making this policy. So
So why
are
are
you
you?
just venting? Like, is this just like
Yeah.
cardiovascular exercise? It's like, what do you do?
And so Anna has a very good point to
Yeah.
back to Red, because same thing, like unless you are talking to the people that really make change or you doing it yourself, you're just a whole bunch of stuff. But we live in a culture, unfortunately, that thrives off this. Look what's even going on this week with, the trial of Donald Trump over in New York now. It's like, oh my God, both sides are just using it to it's I hate blaming the media, but it's like they are part of this problem as well. So
They love it.
they
Love it, yeah.
absolutely, well, they got to make money. And so, we're saturated with it. And I agree with Rhett, like, if you just check out, but it is not easy, so.
Well, I would
Uh,
imagine for you guys, really where you live too. I mean,
mm,
you're a saturated population. I mean, there's so much divisiveness in, that area in New York and all that, that here, I mean, we moved here because it it is homogeneous. What I would say, like we're all like everybody kind of just wants to get away and not pay attention to all that and just live at the beach and play golf
Mhm.
um and with what you guys even do with the podcast and all that, you have to navigate all that, and I don't want to do that at all.
this is not your calling.
No.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and Donald Trump was kind of our hometown boy for years before the presidential race,
Oh, yeah.
because he's he was local. He's just kind of like a local
Yeah.
failed real
King of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
King of the world. Wow.
yeah. So going back to some of our family background. I'm not that much older than you, but some of us that have gone before have made some mistakes, and have found some victories along the way. Are there any lessons that you've learned from some of the rest of us about spirituality, religion, conduct
Um,
yourself in the world?
yes. Um, and my father,
Mhm.
you know, um, Pat, I mean, your father
Yeah.
was, I mean, he's a baller. Like he knows the Lord and is willing to express it exactly how he sees it.
Oh yeah.
And
He pulls no punches. He's very
he doesn't.
uh,
He doesn't. And he wears like he would always wear diamonds and had Corvettes, and like he
yeah.
was, his straw Kangol hats, and like that's just his style. Um and learning his story from being Donald too. I mean, talk about, you know, so a weight to bear, um, and to move away from the faith and back into it. Um, that it really gave me a lot of perspective in that. What I really try and, relay to people is that we're not special. You know,
Hmm.
there's there are people who will always move away. But God wants you to come back, and that's what I have really taken from, if there was, a person in our family
Hmm.
that is willing to tell you about straying, and that, sin's not okay, but you're gonna do it, and God knows you're gonna do it. Um, and as long as you acknowledge it, and, it's there, and you're trying to do better every time, that's what I've gotten from, somebody in our family, because there's a lot of people that I kind of compared myself to. We've got cousins who, to me, like, they're like perfect Christians, and I don't really want to like name drop, but
Yeah.
there are very, what I see as like an idyllic Christian. They are in the box. And they're comfortable in that box.
Hmm.
Um, but I was never comfortable in the box. But I've taken a lot of comfort in knowing that the box is there. Really, I could only kind of describe it that way, because that's kind of what I judge myself against, and it makes you run even further away. Like, I'm so far out of this box that there's no going back, until you get to a point in your life where the box isn't going anywhere. Like,
Hmm.
the box wants you to come back. Um, and I think Pat was a perfect example of that,
Hmm.
from hustling, arm wrestling and bars, and, you know, the Diamond District of New York. I mean, but he was always a shepherd,
Yeah.
no matter what.
Yeah. And when I agree with that. Um, I occasionally give away this secret about both my parents. They both have this very strict faith that they confess, but both of them uh, have shown me love and acceptance of people who are outside that faith. And I've watched their example as much as I followed their teaching.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen both of them do things that are like, that I was kind of like surprised. Like, that's like a very straight laced Christian thing to do, to accept that person, or to have dinner with that person, or to, um, but it's like there's a love that kind of exceeds
Mhm.
the limits of the teaching. And, and
Hmm.
I hope that I'm carrying that tradition forward as well.
You are, absolutely. Like, this is a platform that the masses need.
Thank you.
That's why I was really excited to be a part of this, um, because it's an avenue for the layman to be, hey, we are with the faith, but we're kind of outside of the box, but you can still be with the faith outside of that box.
You
Hmm.
sure can. And, Rhett, when you're in your conversations and what you're doing in your garage and the folks you speak with, do you feel, are you sensing that others are starting to realize this as well, that they don't have to, I mean, I get it that you go to church, you have an institution of that, but sounds like you're also building your own home church of sorts in the garage there too, that the others you're talking with, do they feel this welling up with them, that, oh gosh, it is okay to talk about this, and it is okay to explore, and it is okay to, to reclaim one's faith, and to be a theologian, like a public theologian, one that doesn't have to go to seminary, one that, that doesn't, have to have degrees in theology and stuff like that. Are you sensing that?
I absolutely have.
Yeah.
And it's because there's so much fear, I think in the general public when it comes to like going to church, like
Yeah.
they just feel uneasy.
Yeah.
But it's, the way the churches have developed these days, with a little more contemporary music and, like our church, I really love because like, and this is how I describe it to people um, when I invite them that our church, our preacher is, it's more of like a TED talk than anything. Like
Yep.
it's not as, fundamentalist as people kind of fear and just aren't comfortable going to church. I'm like, it's like a seminar on how to be a good dude all week. And then you go back on Sunday and he's gonna find another topic.
Hmm.
Um that's and I invited a young man who's become a very good friend of mine and he's a Marine. He's only like 24, recently, broke off an engagement and one night I'm like, just come to church. He's like, man, I don't know. I don't got clothes and all this. Like, you don't need clothes. I was like, throw on a pair of sneakers, pair of jeans. Let's go.
Uh-huh.
And he told me that day, he was like, I want to go back. And
Huh.
that's it. Like, just introducing somebody to, you know, it's not as uncomfortable as you think it is. Like, nobody's staring at you. Like, you're not that special walking in. Like,
Right.
you're just somebody who wants a little refresher for the week. Like take it as what it is because that's ultimately our preacher's goal, not to judge anybody or alienate them or make them feel like they're, not a good enough Christian or all that. All they're trying to do is relay what Jesus's message was, which was, live your life between now and next Sunday without being an a-hole.
I love that. I love, that we've talked with so many people who've gone through the process of deconstruction of, who've experienced a number of things. They've experienced abuse in the church and trauma in the church and hypocrisy. And I can go down the list. Uh, and this is one of the things that I hope to do, at least through, like through my writing and podcasting and other teaching, is to tell people, there are other communities that aren't doing that.
Right.
They're not all,
They're not.
it's not all like that. And there are
Yeah.
a lot of different streams of theology and a lot
Absolutely.
of different ways of experiencing the divine. You don't have to throw out the baby with the bathwater.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, you're not married to the church, you're married to the Lord.
Right. Well said. Well said.
well, we are at time. I actually would love to talk more, but it sounds like I gotta head down to Myrtle Beach and hang out with you.
Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach, Myrtle Beach.
It has been too long. But anyway, this is a really great conversation. Awesome talking with you.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Rhett.
Thank you guys so much. Like I said, I've been looking forward to this and, I've mentioned it to a few family members and they're like, are you really doing that? I'm like, I've been,
I'm glad you did, brother. I did.
and I tell them, was like, believe it or not, we've been talking about doing this for a long, long time.
Yeah.
And, and it's been an honor to join you fellas today.
Excellent.
Well, it's been an honor to have you, and we'll let you know when it's up, so you can share it with all your friends. You can play it in your garage.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All the rest of the Wilsons are like, look at them.
That's right. And now everybody's going to want to be on. I'm going to have we're like a
my.
family reunion episode.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
Can you imagine?
we're setting the bar a little higher. I mean, they're just gonna come in there with their Bible box and be like, "All right, Kelly, this is how we do it."
Cube.
Yeah.
What Bible cube?
All right. Well, we will talk with you soon. I love you. It's been
I love you.
too long, and we will talk soon.
Take care, Rhett.
Lead with love.
Lead with love.
Amen.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Radical Love Live, co-hosted by Mark Dilcom and Kelly Wilson. All rights reserved. You can find our podcast on Spotify, Apple, Stitcher, and other popular podcast platforms. Go to radicallovelive.com to learn more about us, watch recordings of our live events, and listen to our podcast. We also invite you to check out what Kelly and Mark are doing by going to our websites. Find Kelly at kellywilson.com and Mark at markdilcom.com. This is Radical Love Live, where we explore faith outside the boxes.